Hi everyone, my name's Sam Baker,
I'm Jessica Benavides.
and welcome to the fourth episode of Track Talk. Today we're talking to Hyundai Racing Canada driver Connor Attrell. Connor's 28 years old, he's from Brampton, Ontario, and he's got 4 years of racing experience. He's going into his third year driving the TCR car, and this year he's racing the brand new Hyundai Elantra N. Last year he finished 6th place overall in the SCCC TCR class, highlighted by a win at the Honda Indy Toronto. Looking forward to a great 2023. Welcome to Track Talk, Connor Attrell.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about how kind of you got into racing, what was, influenced you or put you there, and how the last 4 years kind of brought you to the third season with the SCCC?
It's been a very organic process. It's kind of been my whole life is cars from since I can remember. We sell cars. What I do with my friends is talk about cars. So it's permeated into every bit of my life. And when my dad had previously ran, at one point we had 3 Genesis Coupes we were running under the Hyundai Racing Canada flag. And when he got to the point where he started getting the TCR car, we had one of the Jennies that we didn't sell. So my dad gave my brother and I the opportunity in 19 to do a couple regional races, work on getting our license, and then just kind of see how we did. And we did well enough that I think he thought it was something we could pursue. And then really, starting the pandemic, when the whole sort of everything got cracked down, you weren't traveling. My dad said, let's commit to having more of a racing program and seeing what we can put together. And we've had really, really, really great support through Hyundai Canada and Quaker State. So they've taken care of us, allowed us to field the cars that we can, and be able to compete as a family. So it's just been sort of the ball rolling, and it seems like each year we get a little bit better. We get a little bit more in tune with what we need to be paying attention to, and just trying to improve.
And what's it been like, kind of, I know I talked to you about this a little bit last year, but growing in the sport as a family, like being able to have, Bob and Quinn there.
It's amazing. Sometimes we do butt heads on things, because I find, although we are very, very similar as people, we tend to have different styles in the car, and sort of fleshing that out and realizing that there's not only one way to be fast, so to speak. So kind of butting heads on certain things when it comes to, I don't like when the car feels like this, or the setup. And, we've deviated further in our preference of setups as time's gone on, as we've sort of come into our own driving styles. And especially competing at the level of competition we have in SCCC is pretty high, I'd say. And it's sort of rising to that occasion and figuring out where you're leaving time on the table, which is where you start getting down to the nitty gritty, and it becomes, it's not easy, right? So
just out of curiosity, now that you've said that, what are like some of the biggest differences between, I'm just going to leave Bob out of it because he's not racing this year, but between you and Quinn, as far as like, setup and racing style?
Quinn's a little more aggressive than me, in terms of, my focus. I tend to be smooth. I don't like the car to be too loose. Like, I'd prefer to have a car that I could really, sort of beat on and not think that it's going to snap or something like that. But even now, it's like, I'd say, in answering that question, we're going to find out a lot more this year, now that I feel like we have more time to actually drill down on testing, and less speculation and more really operating off data and stuff like that. Because it's tough running 3 cars when, half my time at the track, I'm getting fuel ready for my car, or having to, make sure the tires are good, or talking about, tire pressures. So getting us to take a little bit more of a step back and be able to actually look at data and discuss between each other, and, hopefully get an engineer out with us this year to have more time to kind of look at that stuff, as opposed to just focus on getting the cars on the track type thing.
That's so exciting. I didn't know you guys were getting an engineer out this year.
We're working on it. I think it's a priority for us, because it's sort of, again, like when we're competing at the level that we are, any little bit of time you potentially leave on the table, it's invaluable, right? So we need to make sure that we're maximizing every opportunity we have, and especially with the weekends being a little bit more condensed this year, I think it's a great opportunity to have someone out there where you're going to have 4 on tracks minimum throughout a weekend, where you can actually spend some time.
Is there any piece of driving advice your dad consistently gives you that kind of makes you roll your eyes because you hear it so often?
You're not going fast enough. It's in talking to my driving style. Like, my dad, his mentality is you could drive it faster type thing. You could always be going faster. And I mean, it's sometimes it's a little bit of the repetitive rhetoric of it, but in a very real sense, he's not wrong. There's always a little bit more time to be had everywhere. And I think it's focusing on that from like a technical perspective, as opposed to it just being, what can I do as a driver, but what can we do as a team to, squeeze some more time out of the car.
So I also just want to dial back a little bit because back, when we were talking about what you're doing during the off season, you mentioned the camp that I know that you guys go to, and Brian Herda. So I just want you to kind of elaborate on that a little bit and just tell us what that's like for you guys for preparing for the season anyways.
Well, Hyundai in the States, in collaboration with Brian Hurd, has done a Hyundai driver camp for, I think, 3-4 years now. I think they skipped a year during the pandemic, and we were lucky enough to be invited to the inaugural one. And it's just sort of, if I get asked, I'm going to go type thing, especially with being able to go down and experience Daytona. So they do it every year. Brian and the whole team at Brian Hurd Autosport, they're consummate professionals, and it's just a really great learning experience. Sort of see how the drivers are operating, what their processes are, leading up to the race weekend, kind of how that team operates. And Quinn and I were lucky enough to have the opportunity when we went down there to really get to be a part of the team. We were in the pits during the race for the inaugural pilot challenge, or I guess it's pilot race. Down in the IMSA series. So it was really cool to be able to kind of be actively a part of it and see how they handle, what are their pre-race sort of checks and what are they really paying attention to on the car, and kind of how they're operating, making live changes, and really sort of the structure of the hierarchy and the pit box, so to speak. So being able to be an active part of that, you learn way more than you could ever learn somebody telling you what to do type thing.
Is there anything that you would say that kind of you and Quinn have talked about wanting to adapt, like going into the 2023 season? Or
I think it's part of it. It's more so from like a team perspective. It's really just kind of data and knowing how useful every little bit of data is, and then also having a little bit more of a defined process. And I think, again, with us having 3 races a weekend, being organized and sticking to a process and having a procedure that you follow is going to be really important, because we have such minimal time between some of the sessions, right? So it's just being able to see that. And then on top of that, being able to see, the LMDH cars on their debut. It's my first time in Daytona. We got to watch the 24. It was one of those experiences that, it felt like we were there way longer than we were, even though we were there for a week. But, yeah, and that's happens when you watch the 24 hours, but then catch a flight at 7 a.m. on Sunday. So lack of sleep and lots of walking.
Yeah, oh my God, I haven't been to a 24-hour race yet, but
the data side of things is so important, because it's like, as a driver, you just want to get in, drive, go fast, but to get to that next level, learning how to understand data, read it.
Well, and that's exactly what I think our focus needs to be on, because my dad has used this line that he's caveman car salesman and a caveman race car driver. And it's kind of, in my dad's driving style, his car control is top notch, but that also leads to the fact that he doesn't care if the car is loose. He doesn't feel if the car feels like it's going to fly off the track. So it's sort of taking that mentality and being able to apply it in a more effectual way, in terms of looking at that and drilling down on all those other things, instead of sort of driving around or over potential issues, right?
Yeah, you got to adapt the car to you, not adapt yourself to the car. So you talked about at the beginning there, got a sim rig. I have heard from a little birdie that you've been spending lots of time on it. Are you playing iRacing, Assetto Corsa?
iRacing. We actually have one of our crew members on our team, Chris Cook. He's a really pretty accomplished iRacer. And when we first bought the sim, we got it at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was just to sort of learn tracks and be able to kind of, let's work on lines and layouts. We didn't really think of it as competing in a sim or even, I never even thought of kind of drilling down and playing that more. And then sort of in the last, over the winter, I kind of got a little bit more involved because of our crew member who's really, really good on the sim. So being able to get some advice from him, because iRacing, I find it's, in terms of all the sims I've driven, like Assetto, I like the way it feels the best, but it can be a little bit challenging in sort of user experience sense. So really just drilled down on that. Did a couple of the larger endurance races, like did Daytona and did Bathurst with a couple of my buddies and a couple of team. So yeah, we have two guys on our team that I race pretty competitively, and it was good. I got to compete in HIP Motorsports, which is a sim I guess studio that is in the Toronto area. They did a hosted charity race with sick kids, and I think we raised like $36,000 in doing a charity race. So it was just cool to be able to compete and kind of some of that stuff. And I mean, it's very different than driving in real life. So having to get used to being fast on the sim versus being quick in real life are two very different things. So it's something I want to work on.
Did you find the mental side of things? Like we just talked to Kenny Riemann, and he talked about how doing a full iRacing race, you can translate that into the real car in terms of having to focus throughout a full 40 minutes or plus, right?
And like in speaking to that and what Kenny's saying, I think that's the benefits of sim racing is you have to maintain your focus for a period of time. You really have to be able to react while still sort of making conscious decisions. And I think the actual driving techniques, it's negligible how much you're learning by driving the sim. I don't think it's necessarily hurting you, but it's really sort of the racecraft, spatial awareness, sort of staying focused, and then also being able to learn tracks and adapt to that type of stuff. That I think there's definitely some value in there, because I mean the level of competition when you get on iRacing, especially towards the top splits, is ridiculous. So it's can be a little humbling at times when you have some 12-year-old drive around you like you're standing still, right?
So speaking of like mentality and focus, just kind of going off of that, do you have anything that you do to prepare ahead of a race, or any sort of like rituals or lucky underwear?
Honestly, I thought about this question because it was like I don't listen to music at the track. I don't have headphones in. Usually before a race, I just don't talk to anyone. I'll go sit by myself somewhere and I'll just try to really think about what I'm trying to accomplish. And I think part of it is also sort of turning my brain off, and really getting to the point where, think about what you want to do prior to the race. Don't think about what you want to do during the race. That's when you need to be doing. So I'd say the only pre-race ritual we really have, which is I think something we got from our dad, is we always have a couple ice cold Red Bulls in the cooler. And it may not be the best thing for me, but I like to have a little bit of Red Bull before the race. It's
You need the adrenaline.
I need my wings, right?
Red Bull gives you wings.
No free ads. I guess we'll skip the playlist question then. So if you could race in any motorsport era, what would it be? What car? What series?
I got a couple.
Okay.
So Can-Am, like old school, like Porsche 917 Can-Am, big power. That, although it's a little death wishy, that just to be able to drive those cars, especially at those tracks, and kind of the speed that those cars saw, that's one of them. Probably when I think about what interests me the most right now is I really enjoy Super GT in Japan. Just the variety of cars, the GT500 cars, and then running GT300, which is GT3 can just slot in. Like you have a Lamborghini racing against a Prius versus a Supra that's run by a bunch of Toyota mechanics. It's insane. So that I really enjoy, but also maybe, go back in time and run 944 Cup or like Players Cup here in Canada and be able to race with some of the older guys who have done it before me. Go race my dad in 944 Cup. So that's kind of what I think about.
Race Robin Buck and Peter Lockhart.
Exactly. Like be able to, I've heard some of the stories. It sounds quite fun. I know not all those cars made it off the track. So
how about, is there a famous driver out there you might compare to or look up to?
Not, I'm a fan of a lot of drivers, but I think like when I was thinking about that question, what popped into mind is like, Kimi Räikkönen is who I want to channel at the racetrack. Like, and sometimes I should just ask myself, what would Kimi do? And that's probably the best option. So I like his attitude about it, because I find a lot of people, when you take it so seriously all the time, it's like, I look up to somebody who sees the light in it and kind of doesn't take it so seriously, but also doesn't put so much weight onto it. So it's sort of Kimi Räikkönen, I enjoy as a driver, but I wouldn't say I necessarily have a favorite or one that I relate to overly.
So describe the relationship with your team. I know it's a family team, but is there anything or any one individual that you couldn't do what you guys do week in, week out without them there?
I mean, we have a pretty tight core member group. Like in terms of our guys, we don't have a ton. Like we couldn't do this without our team, without the support of, like, I consider our team members my closest friends. We only have one person who works full time, and everyone else shows up as out of passion and wanting to be a part of it. So, I mean, without our teammates or without our team members, there's we couldn't do this without the people that show up and help us get the cars on track and participate. There's no way we would be there. And it's sort of the idea of, racing is very much a team sport. As much as you have one driver, the thing I love is that I get to go out there with my family and my closest friends, and we work together towards, the one goal. So I'd say, like, every single member of our team is super important. This year it's going to be Chris, Owen, Kyle, and then I think probably Kyle's brother Nick. We're not sure, but it's going to be people that I've known for years that are very, very close to me, and they come out and make it happen for us. So every single person on the team is super important.
Is Mihao still with you guys, Connor?
Yes, Mihaw's the main guy. Mihao is the head chef, the crew chief. They're actually, I think Quinn and Mihao are going down tomorrow to head down to the States and pick up the shell for the Elantra.
Nice. Okay.
So yeah, Mihaw's our main guy. Then we have Chris, Owen, Kyle, Nick, and then Quinn and myself and my dad. And then Chris Ford, who's our logistics manager. So pretty tight-knit squad, and everybody plays a very important role.
Who do you enjoy finishing ahead of more, your brother or your dad?
Both of them. I don't want either of them to finish ahead of me, ever.
Okay. And who do you trust more going side by side into a corner with?
Probably Quinn. Just because I know my dad doesn't like to be passed. So it's to a degree, but I mean, I find, especially in racing, like, you have to have a degree of trust with all your competitors to be able to actually push the car and perform at the limit. So it sounds bad, but to a degree, I don't really think about that. It's sort of, you can't assume people are going to do something, but you also have to a certain degree of trust so that you can actually race them at a competitive level.
So are you going to be running the Elantra this season?
Yes, I'm in the Elantra and Quinn will be in the Veloster.
And do you think that it's quite different on track, the Elantra versus the Veloster, in your opinion?
It is quite different. There's a lot of fundamental sort of mechanical changes to the car with it being newer. Wheelbase is a big thing, difference in location of weights and sort of weight distribution on the car. I did have the opportunity when my dad and I ran IMSA at CTMP to drive the car, although it was much heavier and, a little bit of a different setup due to ride height and stuff going to the endurance spec. I really enjoyed driving the car, so I am super excited to get into that car for the summer. And it's like little things like it having electric power steering versus, our power steering pumps exploded on the last race weekend of last year. So it's sort of not having to worry about that, and then having a newer car in general is something I'm really excited for. So I'm really excited to drive it. We're gonna have to see what the pace looks like when we get there and kind of go from there.
Have you driven it yet?
Just at the IMSA race at CTMP.
So who's your dream endurance co-driver?
Dream endurance co-driver? Ideally my girlfriend, Demi. If I had to not pick her, I don't know. It's tough to say. Like when I think about that, I want to race with my family. So Demi, my dad, my brother, even. If I had to pick someone on a celebrity level, I would probably have to say Jordan Taylor, because I think it would be a great time. That's just kind of my thought on it. But yeah, ideally my girlfriend, yes.
He got a NASCAR ride too this weekend.
Yeah, I saw that. So they put coach in the car, so I'm pretty stoked for that. And I mean, it's interesting. Just I like his attitude, and I got a chance to meet him briefly at Daytona, just say hi to him, and he's a really nice guy. So get what is it, Rodney Sandstorm out at the track? That'd be fun.
Yeah, there you go.
The next one you've kind of already answered. It's just how do you stay calm before you head out on race day? But you just kind of said like you just hang out alone for a little bit.
Well, part of it is it's the way I think about it is that's my job at the track is to drive the car. Like everyone else shows up, and we have people whose job is to take care of the cars, people whose job is to get the cars there, people who handle logistics. My job when it comes to the team is driving the car. So it's kind of it's not even something I think about. It's what we're here to do. So it's like going to work.
Okay, last fan question here. What has been your most memorable moment on track?
I mean, honestly, my most memorable moment was the absolute parking lot that we created. Although it's not necessarily the best point, I've never had that feeling where I get out of the car because I was trying to move the car still when I was up against the wall. Like, let's go! Like, I don't want to be stuck. And then I got out of the car and I saw the car engine, and it was like one of those things where it's like I didn't even know what to do with myself. So that's probably my most memorable moment. In terms of positive memorable moments, it's tough to say. I think really just every minute I can have at the track with my friends and family is memorable, and it's my happy place. It's where I like to be. So, I just enjoy the experience in general, especially being able to spend time with my family and be able to have the people who are closest to me, competing with me in the thing I like doing the most. So.
Just piggybacking off that last question, is there any memorable moments from when you were a kid growing up with the track?
Probably the most memorable I have was when we started the Genesis program. When my dad was running our super touring Genesises, we had 3 at one point, and there was a period where we did a bit of a show, like where my dad talked about sort of my grandpa and just kind of being able to be a part of that while being like a kid and not really understanding the racing side of things, but still being an active part of it and being able to see my dad go race. And he was quite successful in the Genesis. So being a part of that's probably my most memorable experience. There was a season where we had all 3 cars, and they were everything just came together in one season, and it was my dad competing with our other drivers to be at the front of the field. And so that was probably my most memorable experience when I was younger.
So now we're going to jump into the hot lap section. So this is just rapid fire Q&A, but some questions we might dive into a bit more. It's kind of up to you. So if you're ready, I'll start firing them off.
I'm ready to go.
All right. First one, wet or dry races? Which do you prefer?
Honestly, I have no preference either way. I don't mind the wet at all. As long as my windshield doesn't fog up, I'm not going to complain. So I wouldn't have a preference either way.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably the ideal answer, I guess. Which is most important to you? Corner apex, entry, or exit?
Exit.
Okay.
Corner exit is everything.
Bucket list track to drive?
Probably Daytona. Whether it be in it got to be in an endurance sense, whether it be a 4-hour race or a 24-hour race, it depends on how big I want to dream. But after seeing the track in person, definitely Daytona. The only other one probably beyond that is just Le Mans, at least to go there. But I've driven Nürburgring, not in a race, but I've driven it. So kind of my bucket list thing is I would like to do an endurance race at all 3 of those tracks at some point, but depends on where life goes and what racing looks like down the road.
When you're at Daytona, did you get to walk on the banks at all?
Yeah, we got to go stand on the banks. Like we did a full track walk. It was just it's insane because when we went to Daytona, I had already committed with my friends to doing the 24-hour Daytona and iRacing. So on the Saturday, I did 4 hours of driving throughout the middle of the night, and then Sunday morning got on a plane at 7 a.m. to go to Daytona and then walk the track the day after. So it was kind of a bit of a weird, surreal experience, but definitely took it all in, went up in the grandstands. It's just one of those places that, you see it on TV, but nothing really equates to you being there. So yeah, probably just stick with that.
What's a bucket list event to attend as a fan?
As a fan, as a fan, I would like to see an F1 race in Japan at some point, and probably Le Mans.
That's a unique answer, I feel. Why Japan?
I just think that track has so much pedigree from a Formula One aspect. Sort of being able to go there. Like, there's other automotive stuff, but just the level of sort of insanity the fans get going there, and the pedigree the track holds, especially being the decider for many F1 seasons. So it's sort of, just be able to go there and take it all in and experience that.
Okay, who's your favorite Mario Kart character to play?
Mario, old reliable.
We've had a lot of those. I think we'll do a counter for that question also.
I think we should do a Mario Kart competition with all the drivers, because I'm pretty decent. Not that I may not want to talk too heavy, but Quinn and I could probably take out most of the other drivers in Mario Kart.
All right, everybody get a Nintendo Switch. We're playing online.
You guys let me know when the Mario Kart event is, and Quinn and I will be there. Okay.
If you could use a Mario Kart power up on track in real life, what would it be?
Red shell, or maybe a little mushroom, little boost. I don't know. I feel like just going out and saying like one of the ridiculous, like blue shell would be a little unfair. So keep it modest. Red shell or a little boost.
Who would you say is the most influential person in your life, and why?
My dad, I would say, because he's been such an important figure in my life from a sort of leadership perspective, whether it be, car business or it be racing or just in general. My life's permeated with cars, and it's the same thing that his is. So it's, anything I do at work, I'm working with my dad. I manage our Georgetown location, which we opened October 5th, 2020. So I've been able to do everything and see the process of getting a dealer set up and dealing with managing people and going through that. So, understanding what he went through in the early 90s, opening the store, when it's a completely different time, completely different market, it was a little bit just eye-opening. And then that kind of inspires me to be able to, push myself on a work level and push myself on a racing level. So I'd say definitely he's the most influential person in my life. He's a part of every part of my life, and being my dad, it's goes kind of hand in hand in that sense.
So we're kind of trading your dad out for your girlfriend this year on the track, right? So no more Bob, add Demi. Have you guys talked about racing together and what that's going to be like?
We have. Actually, Demi and I have raced together, because in 2019 I ran our Genesis in the GT3 class, and I ended up doing one race with her where I think her engine exploded in that race, or the race after. But we've had some chats about it. We're blessed in the sense that we're not in the same class, but last year, prior to it kind of not working out, she did test a TCR car, and we helped her out, kind of getting the car set up and going through that whole process of working with her, and we get along very well when it comes to the racing side of things. So I don't think we're gonna have any issues. I'm excited to be able to be on track with her at the same time, and I'm excited to see her, rip the GT4. She's driving the AMG, so with JMF. So it's just a cool opportunity to see another driver, beyond it being my girlfriend, another driver come to the series, and I'm excited to see her compete. And it's going to be an interesting sort of family dynamic at the track, with having my immediate family, pretty much everyone there. It's going to be awesome.
What do you think has been the most challenging part of learning racing so far? Would that be getting used to the TCR car? Would that be racecraft? Like, what do you think you find the most challenges?
I think the biggest challenge, and it's something where I think I've realized this year that I what I was missing, because it's hard to speculate on stuff if you don't know if you even had that. So it's the idea of really drilling down on sort of looking at driving techniques and things like trail braking and orienting the car and the apex. And I've been reading a lot of stuff in the off season. Pretty much anything performance driving or even engineering, as many books as I can get my hands on in terms of that. Like, I think a couple like Speed Secrets by Ross Bentley I started ripping through. There was a couple other sort of driving oriented books, and then just kind of reading about stuff like that and trying to get more knowledge, because we never came from a go-kart background. Like the first race car I got in was in 2019 was the Genesis Coupe GT3 touring car, right? So it's sort of the idea of not having that and operating a lot on, sort of instinct, or just, what I'm able to do now without sort of having a higher level coaching or learning experience to it. It's those little things that I'm starting to kind of open my eyes to and realize that, to be more analytical about how I'm driving and why I'm doing the things that I'm doing in the car, and then being able to go back and really analyze that effectively, as opposed to just kind of having the mentality of, oh, I need to go faster. It's how can I go faster, and what can I do, or what can I try to do to improve this corner or my lap time overall. So it's very much drilling down to more of a technical aspect.
So what are you looking the most forward to in 2023?
Just, I think in general, coming into the season with a little bit more, I hesitate with saying aggression, but more sort of more of a gung-ho attitude towards putting the car up front. And I'm excited to drive the new car. I'm in the process of working on some new liveries for the cars, so trying to get something a little more unique to us. And I really want to kind of steal the show when the cars show up. So I'm excited to have a little bit of a refresh, going down to 2 cars. I really want to use this as sort of a kicking off point for myself and the team and my brother to kind of turn a new leaf and get into the next of my racing career, so to speak.
What's something you love about the TCR class?
I think the biggest thing is, and it's also just with not having experience driving other race cars, is that we're driving cars with no traction control, no ABS, they're front wheel drive. You're doing all your turning, all your braking, all your accelerating on the front wheels. So I find it creates really good habits and sort of your inputs and how you're driving the car. But then it also creates, gives you that experience of, you need to load the car on the aero throughout, bottom of corner 2 at Mossport. You need to really commit to that to have the car stick, because if you're not going fast enough and you're not loading that aero up enough, it's not going to stick. So I think it gives you really good experience to drive other cars, cars that have TC and have ABS and have these driver aids and maybe even a little more aero that you can lean on. It just gives you a really good base, I think, for driving at a high level.
The next question you already kind of touched on as well, just saying, improving and, bringing the team kind of up a level professionally, but are there any other, goals that you have personally this year going into the season?
Just put the car up front. We want to, be right at the top end when it comes to pace. And if we can't, if we find we're lacking on pace, either figure out how we can make it up, or, you got to send it off to start, figure it out in corner 1. You know what I mean? So it's sort of the idea that by any means necessary, I need to try to put the car up front and be less concerned about, again, knock on wood, preserving the car too much. Having that inherent trust with the other competitors that if you leave a gap open, and just kind of being a little bit more in that mentality of really capitalizing on every opportunity, being a little bit more aggressive, and just trying to, bring it all together as a single package. So
can you talk to us a little bit about sponsorship? I know you guys have Hyundai and Quaker State are huge contributors and support you guys, through the last 2 seasons anyways. But I think Quaker State has been around supporting Bob for a while, right?
So we've been supported by Hyundai on a sponsorship level for, I want to say, about 14 years now on a racing program side of things. Started with the Genesis Coupes. Hyundai's been such an amazing partner for us. Obviously, with us being Hyundai dealers, and it kind of goes hand in hand. Going into the TCR program and speaking with the N brand that Hyundai has, like they've done such a good job on the N brand street cars, and it goes hand in hand with their racing now. So I think it's a really good opportunity for Hyundai, and I mean they've been fully supportive on the racing side of things. They know it's important to have a presence out there on the track, especially when you're competing with some of these other brands. And they make a really, really good road car in the Elantra and in the Kona N now in terms of terms of performance cars. So they're, it translates. And what you're seeing on the racetrack isn't so far different than what you're able to buy at the store. So they've been really good. Quaker State, another huge supporter. We've been with Shell for, I don't know exactly how many years, but we've been with, hooked up with Shell for quite a while. We used to take the Genesis when it was Quaker State down to SEMA with them. And Quaker State is a huge supporter of ours. They supply the oil at the Hyundai stores in Canada. So it's this hand-in-hand sort of symbiotic relationship. But they've been super, super supportive of us along with Hyundai. Like, can't say too many good things about them. Like, it's been incredible. So really just trying to capitalize on having 2 cars this year. The liveries are going to be a little bit more tailored to our sponsors, and kind of just really put together a more of a consummate program. Racing is a marketing exercise, and that clicked in my head kind of last year, and especially going down to Daytona, it sort of reinforced it. Like, yeah, ideally the best person would be in the car, or you'd have the best but it turns into the idea that it's a little bit more of a gray area than that, because it's a marketing exercise. The only reason we go racing is because it's promoting something, and whether it be, our sponsors, Hyundai Canada and Quaker State, or it be the sooner I feel like people, especially younger, which I'm 28. I've only been racing for 4 years. I'm not a spring chicken. I never go-karted. I never went through that process, but really viewing it as kind of a marketing exercise. And when you break it down, like, what are you offering, or what is the market situation that, dictates you getting a sponsorship, right? And to a degree, it's also people liking you, right? Like, nobody wants to give money to someone they don't like. That's one of the oldest things in the car industry. Before someone's going to give you money, they have to like you. But I am realizing, as I'm taking more of an active role in trying to, manage the team, or manage more of the team, that how important that is, and how it's very much sort of a perspective thing. And it's really worked the relationships that you already have. I mean, that's the big thing is think of people, think of people that you already have a relationship with. And really drill down on that, because I find it's, you're going to get a better return on, maybe having one long-term sponsor than jumping around, so to speak. Like, working that relationship and establishing a really symbiotic relationship with them is probably the best thing you can do.
Do you have any advice that you can give anybody who started out kind of the same way you did, getting into a car, maybe wasn't karting at first, or didn't have that kind of experience? Any sort of advice?
I mean, it's tough from a perspective. I mean, I think the biggest advice is sort of the idea that you have to start somewhere. And for me, I was blessed with the opportunity because of my dad having the car and already having the race team. And we've, I'm so privileged in that sense. If I wanted to go racing right now, the first thing I would do is go get a go-kart. Just because barrier of entry, cost, what you're spending, your ability to run the car. That's kind of what I look at. And that seems to be the path that most young people take. I think it's making that jump in Canada, from my perspective, from Formula 1600, where do you go from there, right? Because the traditional path and moving up in the formula side of things isn't as open in Canada. You talk about a different amount of money when you go run in the States. So I'm super proud to be a part of, FEL and SCCC and compete with the Radicals, just because I think it provides a very good sort of foothold for people to jump from that level. When you're kind of like, where do I go to? You can compete at a high level. You're not necessarily driving against, the best of the best of the best, where you're going to go get, you go down to the States in F4 and it's a completely different animal. It's closer to home, and it gives you real world sports car experience, where I find, going from karts to F1600 and then jumping into something from there, you kind of have to pick your poison, so to speak, on what you want to pursue in the future. And, that ship's long sailed for me. But it's sort of the idea that, someone who's 15, 16, F1600 and they're doing quite well, where else do you go in Canada? Like, what else do you do after that? So I think it provides a really good opportunity in the series to be able to have that kind of stepping stone, and especially mirroring IMSA. Like, for me, I don't really have a ton of interest in formula driving. I'm sports car all the way. And I think that reflects in my answer of what cars I would want to drive. It's, yeah, F1 cars are cool, but there's something about door-to-door sports car, let's go trade paint, bang it out, and hopefully make it across the line, appeals to me. But it's sort of, I get in that question, like, how do you jump from winning a 1600 season to the next step?
Anything you got going on in your life you want to shout out? Anyone specific you want to thank?
Not entirely. I mean, come follow the team, Hyundai Racing Canada. Follow me, Connor Attrell. Check out my brother, Quinn. We're going to be there in a big way this year. If you're interested in a Hyundai, feel free to reach out. I have a couple. I know a couple people. And then, other than that, and just I'm really excited for the season. Excited to be able to race with, not only my brother now, but with my girlfriend, and kind of go from there. So just excited for the season. Looking forward to put on a good show for all the fans, and really just come out there swinging.
Awesome, Connor. Thank you so much. That was awesome. Thanks for being so honest and open with your answers. And well, good luck this season. I'm super excited to see how it goes this year. You guys kind of taking it up a notch.
Oh, it was awesome chatting with you guys.
Yeah, you too.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, you too. Bye, Connor.
Thanks, Connor.
Have a good one. Bye, guys.
Still going bad on you anyway. Whoa, 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 whoa. I can feel like 80 rats in my Marys. Me and Drizzy back to back is getting scary.